What's going on, guys? So welcome to another video, and you're on my couch again, and today I've got a pretty neat unboxing for you all. Okay, so I bought this off a guy called Yamako. He's on the Assembler Games forums. He's also on YouTube. His YouTube channel is Retrocore, and he does arcade stuff and things, and a few other stuff like a little mini review of this arcade clone box thing and all sorts of cool stuff. I'll put a link in the description to him. And you could probably find his contact info there if you want to buy one of these upscalers off him. Okay, so what's first up in the box? Well, I only just got this just then. I really just had a quick little peek in there, see if there was an invoice or anything there, just take it out just in case. First up, the box came in pretty good shape. We packed it really well. One corner did get a bit damaged. Where is it? Yeah, one corner did get a bit damaged, but that's okay. There was nothing on that side of the box, just some paper. The unit came in pretty good shape. So let's dig in first. First we have a potato. And next we have HDMI cable. He threw in a free 2-meter HDMI cable. I think he does that with every sale. So pretty neat. I bought this bit extra. And that is a D terminal to RCA, or better known as component, because it uses the component signals on this little adapter here. D terminal is mainly just used in Japan. It's a pretty sort of odd interface, I guess you could say. It looks a little bit like a VGA socket, but much smaller, and the pins are different. So don't get the two mixed up. And then lastly, we have... tip that out of there. We have the XRGB Mini 3 million, whatever it's called, and sorry for all the noise, and it is quite lovely wrapped in a bag to stop it from getting scratched up and stuff, and it's got some nice Japanese bondage tape on there, so let's just rip into this. Ooh, plastic bag. Now, one thing I find really amazing is this was in Japan on Monday. It's now Friday. It was in Japan in someone else's hands. It's so weird. I just think that's so cool when you order something from overseas. It was in a different country just a few days ago. Anyway, I'm just being simple. Okay, so the rustling of paper plastic bags. Okay, so this is the box. It's all in Japanese. One thing to note is Yamako, or his name's Mark, I think. Yes, I believe his name is Mark. If it's wrong, I'm sorry. He already converts these to English. He installs the English firmware on them because this is a Japanese company that makes this. They're made by micomsoft. Where is it? Yes. micomsoft, sorry. Yeah, it's made by micomsoft, and so naturally it's all going to be in Japanese, but he sort of exports them to the rest of the world below retail price, which is nice. I don't know how he does it. Probably buys it in bulk or something. I don't know. So yeah, this is the box. I don't know what any of this says. Basically, I think that just says any input to HDMI. This is an upscaler. From what I've read, it has 0 latency, and a lot of people complain on the internet that it does have latency, but that is more to do with your display having latency rather than this device. On the side, nothing as well. Just some stuff. I can't read that. What does it say? HDMI, DVI, nothing else. This also supports RGB, that's why I got it. Nothing on the side. Made in Taiwan. That's strange. I thought they were made in Japan. And on the back, here's the website for the company. Being a Japanese website, even when it's translated, it doesn't make much sense. But you can also get the English firmware from there if you bought this from somewhere else and it didn't get converted for you. And then on the bottom, we have some spectacles. And let's just focus on that. Yeah, we have the specs here. Composite, S-Video, D-Terminal, SCART. Now, this isn't actually SCART. Let me just zoom in there. Now, this isn't actually SCART. SCART is the format that's used in Europe, whereas Japan, they use the same connector, but it's just called JP21. It's a different pinout. If you plug a SCART connector into a JP21, you're going to run into some problems. I don't think it would actually damage any of the equipment. It just wouldn't work. I don't know the exact difference between the pinouts, but there is a few voltage pins that they're mainly used for switching video modes on SCART and JP21, and they're different, so you don't want to mix them up. Supports RGB at 15 kilohertz, and then we have HDMI 480p to 1080p. It's sort of a standard for HDMI inputs, and then it can output that all into 480p, 720p, and 1080p/I. Just go 1080p. I interlaced video is annoying. And then we have some DVI to, that's DVI-D and DVI. That would be going through an HDMI adapter. This does not have a DVI port on the back as far as I'm aware. Then we have, I don't know what that is. I think that's just supported resolutions at different frequencies. So it does 1920 by 1080 at 24p, which is sort of a cinema standard, I believe. I think cinema standard is 24p. And then a whole bunch of text that I can't read. If anyone's interested, I can scan this whole box if you want and upload it on my website, and you can take a better look. But I believe they're in the online manual for this thing. It is there anyway, and I believe it's in English as well. Now, if you're interested, here is just a better look at that D-terminal plug. Now, as I said, D-terminal is sort of a Japan exclusive thing. I don't even know if they even use it in China either. Think of it more like a digital-only version of SCART. I don't believe this normally carries any analog signals. So we have the D-terminal end on here, and the RCA plug is on here. These are wired up to the component inputs on this plug here. That's pretty neat. So now I can plug in the Xbox and stuff, and the PS2 and the Wii into this. So yeah, very handy. Means I won't even need to use the component inputs on my capture cards, which is nice. Alright, so let's move along to the box. Let me just fix the mic up here a little bit so you can hear me better. And I had to move onto my chair, so if you hear it squeaking, I'm very sorry. It was killing me sitting on my knees because this is on my couch and my apartment is very small. Okay, so what's in the box? We have... Okay, so much white here. Can't really see. Okay, so in the box here we have some instructions. All in Japanese, I believe. Yep, all in Japanese. I won't bother opening them. Whoops, hit the camera with it. Won't bother opening them. I'll put a link in the description to the English manual. I believe they have an English manual available. And we'll start off with the most boring stuff first. What's this? Here we have the bottom stand. Oh, very nice. It's just plastic. You see it on the box. Not too bad. Reminds me a bit of the PS2 stands a little bit. Or more like a router stand. Not too bad, not too bad. Now, let's have a look here. This, I believe, is just the wall wart for it, power adapter, what do you want to call it? It's very heavy. Feels like a, ooh, that is really heavy. Why is that so heavy? And there's no inputs on it. And if you're interested, if you're one of those power adapter people, here's the inputs. It's center tip positive, which is normal, 5 volts, 2 amps. Pretty low voltage actually. I thought this was 12. Yes, not too bad. So that's a 10 watt. This draws a whopping 10 watts of electricity at max load. Okay, so under the Framemister, there's something under here. What could it be? And that is the remote, which is in Japanese. If you do buy one of these and you don't know Japanese, you can actually buy a replacement overlay for these on eBay. Just a sticker, and it has the translations on it. I don't think I'll get one. I think I'll just look up a photo of it and make my own. That'll be interesting. Save myself $10. It's a pretty nice remote. A lot nicer looking than the XRGB 3, I think it was. The big one that didn't have HDMI output. So here's the remote. We have HDMI. Actually, is this in English? No, it's not. Just the top is. That's weird. HDMI, DVI, power. I don't know what that is. Don't know what that is. I think that's the menu button from what I've seen other people talking about it. And then we have these colored buttons. I don't know what they do. I think they're input hotkeys or something. Then we have video modes, game, LB, LB2, I think that's it, that I can actually understand what's on here. I'll try and look up the translation. And yeah, and it just takes 2 AAA batteries like a normal remote. That's fairly nice. It's a bit plasticky. Like when you compare it to my TV remote, which thankfully this is not glossy like this one, but you know, this remote's fairly nice. It's fairly heavy and sturdy, but this TV was like $1,200, whereas this thing is about $450-ish. With the exchange rate and PayPal being silly, this whole thing ended up being about $490, sorry. And then in the bottom we have, let's see if I can get this open. Aha! Open sesame. And this is the JP21 to 8-pin mini DIN connector. That's as close as I can get it. 8-pin mini DIN with no key, which is weird. Is that 8 or 9? Might have changed it. And this is JP21. I'm going to rewire this to SCART because I have half of my RGB setup started. I'm going to be going from a custom connector to a SCART output, a male SCART connector, and that way I can connect it to this and another scaler that I have, which I will probably make I'm going to make a review on this other scaler I've got. And what everyone has been waiting for, the piece of resistance, that is the compact upscaler unit Framemister XRGB Mini. Okay, if you don't know much about this, I'm going to probably do a review on this guy. This is a upscaling unit, upscan converter, upscaler, whatever you want to call it. It takes shitty low res images and upscales them to 1080p. 60 Hz, which is good, so you can do 60 FPS on this thing. One thing to note, which is really good, because this does a 60 Hz output, some really cheap scalers, I believe, only do a 30 Hz output, which causes a bit of a problem, seeing as the input resolution is at 60 Hz, so call it 60 frames per second, and it's outputting at half of that. You're going to have a slowdown and stuff. So this one, from what I understand, is 60 Hz. Thankfully, the unit itself on the buttons and everything is in English, which is easier to navigate. You've got power, input, menu, up and right. Doesn't make any sense. Maybe that's up and down. Or, strange. I don't know what those buttons mean. And the OK button. Along the back here, I'll flip it around. We have HDMI out, micro SD port, that is for updating the unit, which I shouldn't need to do. This should have the latest firmware on it. And then we have audio in, left to right, that's for the D terminal. D terminal does not carry audio from what I understand. And I understand very little these days. There's the D terminal up to 1080p input, which is nice, because that means when I connect up the original Xbox, it's modified with a component output, and the menus are in 1080p, I believe. The actual system is in 1080p, but the games don't run in 1080p. And then we have HDMI in and HDMI in again. Now these are handy because my Dreamcast is VGA, as some people know, and it's running through a VGA to HDMI converter, not an upscaler. It just converts it to a digital output. So that means I can plug it into here because this does not have a VGA input. I don't believe it even has support for horizontal and vertical sync inputs, whereas RGB uses a single sync for everything. We have USB. I'm not really sure what the USB is for. Could be maybe for taking screenshots, maybe, or maybe it's just for a direct firmware update using a PC. And then we have the 5V input jack. Now this thing does have a pretty cool sort of exterior on it. It looks a lot like an original PS2 with the cool lines and stuff on it. It's very subtle, it's very small. What have I got to compare it to? I don't really have anything to compare it to. It's about the same size as a DVD case, so about that size, about 2.5 times thicker. Oh, probably just twice as thick as a normal DVD case, and sort of about same width or same length, and a little bit narrower. So that's not too bad. It's pretty small actually. It's a lot smaller than the older versions of this unit, or the other versions of this unit. Oh yeah, that's a bit of a sneak peek. This still has the it still has a 12-month subscription code in it that hasn't been used. I might try and use it. Don't know if it'll work with a 360 or Xbox One, but it might. So yeah, and just on the bottom for those curious, here is my serial number, 007, ooh, fancy, 603. So it's a pretty low number unit actually. I don't guess they sell too many of these. And just on the bottom, you know, just some Chinese, Japanese, whatever. Yeah, so I'm going to set this up now, and let's do a bit of testing. I don't have any RGB inputs set up yet, so I'll do a review on this thing hopefully and show you what it looks like, but I can show you component. Okay, so I've got the Xbox hooked up. I just turned on the Framemister, and when you first power it up, it's going to be on a blue screen because it's set to a different input. So let me just find my remote. I looked up a translation of the remote control here on my trusty dusty iPad. Okay, so I'm gonna go HDMI mode. Let's try pressing some buttons here. So if I press the HDMI button, I can change the input. So we've got 1080p at 60i and 60p, 720p, 480p, 1080p at 50 Hz, and 576 50p. That's component output, power component output. So if I just click that again, and if I want to go back, I have to press, does not have a back button, so I'm guessing I just have to press OK. Okay, cancel. Alright, so let's just have a look here. Let's go into the menu. So press the menu button. Then we have our output mode, HDMI or DVI. I don't know the difference. And then we have HDMI output. That's that resolution settings. We have DVI output. Let's have a look here. Okay, so it does PC outputs as well. So we go menu. Okay, menu goes back. Image mode, standard, game, and then Meister. I think that does scan lines and stuff. Anime changes the colors up a bit, I believe. Movie reduces the saturation a little bit, natural, and then picture. I'll just leave it on standard for now. Aspect ratio, now this is handy for different sorts of inputs like old consoles or new ones. I'm just going to leave it on auto, it should detect it fine itself. Screen settings, now I don't know what this is, Smart X1, X2, I believe that just does some changes to the image, put some filters over it, removes some noise and stuff. So let's just go standard for now, and then color set, brightness, gamma. Okay, you can change all this sort of stuff. I'm gonna leave it on. I'm gonna leave it set to normal. Although I might just turn down sharpness. I believe it's sharpness. Yeah, it's already on 0. No worries. Visual settings, and this is to adjust the vertical and horizontal positions, the width and everything, skew. That's handy for if you're connecting up arcade machines, I've seen, especially vertical shooters. You can adjust how they look on a TV. Zoom settings, so you can zoom in and stuff, whatever, overscan. Sync settings, I'm going to leave this at the same right now just because I'm not using RGB, so I don't want to mess around with the sync settings on that one. HDMI settings again. Okay, deep color. Turn off deep color, we don't want that, that'll mess up with the capture. What else we got here? Output color, output range, blah blah blah. What's this? HDMI direct. I don't know, I have to look all these up in the manual when I get it. Audio settings, audio level, let's leave it at 32. HDMI audio. I don't know. RGB audio. I don't know, we'll just leave that as is. Options, power settings, standby on. Oops. OS on-screen display mode on. Freeze, you can freeze frame if you want to take screenshots. Screen color, so we can choose black or blue for the no input screen. I'll leave it on blue. AV mute, I think that mutes the input, and then language, which I won't touch. Then we have special menus, you can do scan lines, stuff like that. I think I turned scan lines off, yes I did. When you upload a video to YouTube, because the way it gets re-encoded, scanlines really mess with that, unless maybe you upload in 4K and it uses a higher bit rate. It might fix it, I don't know, haven't tried it. We have all these different options. This remote's okay, it's not super accurate, I have to point right at it for it to work. It doesn't have a very good range. Retro mode, color invert, I don't know, I'm just gonna leave all that. Data, status, what's under data? Let's have a look. Okay, so you can set presets for different things. So if you wanted to have a preset for, say, a vertical shooter and you wanted to adjust the screen so it fits properly, you could set that up and then just load that out of the menu. That's probably a bit more than what I would ever use this for. I just want to upscale stuff. I don't really want to have to mess around with settings. I just want a setup where I can just play games and whatever. Okay, so then we go to status. Full status, firmware version, PCB version. That's really neat actually. If you're into that sort of stuff. What's under status? Status. Okay, it says the current input, audio output, stuff like that. So let's go menu, back again. Alright, so the iPad went to sleep. Let's have a look here. There's two buttons here, HDMI volume. I'm not going to bother with that. Input selection. Haha, that's what those little English buttons before. You got HDMI 1 and 2, RGB. Component is the D letter for some weird reason. S video is the S, and video is composite. Okay, so let's just press D and wait for it to load. Okay, so let's just mess around with a couple of the what are they? Processing modes. So we'll just press game 1, see how this looks. We'll just load it up into San Andreas. First game I picked up that I thought would look neat. Okay, so this is just running in, it's upscaled to 1080p at the moment. There seems to be like, yeah, there's virtually no lag on this one, or what I'm seeing on the TV. There might be a little bit in the recording though. Let's try, so standard, doesn't look too bad. I turned up the sharpness just a tad. What's this one? Game 2, sort of blotches it up a bit. Meister, yeah, that does have scan lines and stuff. That doesn't look too great on this. Although it does fix up a lot of the aliasing around the corners and stuff. What's this one? Movie. That really sharpens it up a bit too much for my liking. Anime, colors go up and whatnot. Natural. All these last ones just adjust the colors and stuff. Okay, standard. Alright. So that's the original resolution of the game actually, 480i or whatever. That actually looks pretty neat when it's not scaled up to 1080p, it's just sitting there. That looks pretty good actually. Just tiny image. Oh no, I'm being shot at! Ah, run away! I'm changing video modes. Okay, we're back to standard now. That took ages. Okay, so what have we got here? We've got 4x3, widescreen, and auto. Okay, now let's have a look here. Okay, so that's what invert looks like. It looks pretty funny. Let's turn that off. Alright, let's go for a bit of drive around, shall we? It's nice that I can capture with this thing, but I don't know. I'll have to mess around with the settings on the Xbox to get it to look nice. Okay, so adjust the color in a little bit on this. It looks better now that I fixed it up a little bit, cleaned it up. It's probably the best you could probably get. This is only a 480i input, I believe, or it's not the best input to really show off this device, but I'm going to do a review anyway, so